This mother was found brutally murdered while her quadruplet toddlers were found covered in her blood. Sheila Bellish was a mother of 6. She had her 2 older daughters from a previous marriage with a man named Alan Blackthorne. After her divorce, she then had her 4 beautiful toddlers right here with this man named Jamie Bellish. On the evening of November 7th, 1997, Sheila was found by her oldest daughter here. After she came home from school, she saw her mother on the floor with her throat slit, and her 4 younger siblings, the quadruplets, were literally crawling all over their mother's blood. Now, when you see this family, they look perfect and happy, but Sheila's past with her ex-husband is very messy. This is Sheila's ex-husband, Alan Blackthorne, and he made her life a living nightmare. So much so that she had to move her entire family from Texas all the way to Florida just to get away from him. Alan was very rich, and a lot of people described him as obnoxious and just a shitty person, but after his divorce with Sheila, he owed her over $1 million for their divorce settlement. He was not happy about that at all, so he hired this man, Jose Luis del Toro, to take Sheila's life. Jose broke into Sheila's house where no one was there except for her and her 4 toddlers, and he watched as she interacted with her babies, and he said that at one point he wanted to leave because he felt bad, but then he ended up just going through with it and he took her life. This case is extremely devastating. These 4 toddlers were forced to grow up without their mother, and then the daughter who basically saw her mother in that state, which no child should ever have to, and then not only did they lose their mother, but they also lost their father through this process. Alan Blackthorne was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in federal prison without the possibility of parole. And the hitman, Jose Luis del Toro, he did avoid the death penalty. Instead, he was given life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The Rarest Photos Ever Taken, Part 2. Photographer Herbert van der Beek captured this insanely rare moment of a jaguar diving underwater to catch its prey. Unlike domesticated cats, jaguars love the water and are known to be excellent swimmers. In 1932, Dr. Eric Solomon faked a broken arm so that he could sneak a camera in his cast to photograph the Supreme Court. It's one of only 2 existing photos of the Supreme Court in session. Here's an amazing photo of a diver at Silfra Fissure in Iceland touching both North America and Europe at the same time. This is an extremely rare view of people peeking out the balcony of the Statue of Liberty. This area has been closed to the public since 1916 due to terrorist threats. A Florida photographer captured this incredible image of an owl raising a duckling after mistaking the egg for its own. Concerned that the owl would eat the duckling once it realized the situation, a local wildlife sanctuary agreed to take care of the baby bird when they had the chance to steal it from the owl's nest.
Facts that can one day save your life. If your hair suddenly stands up, run for cover because you're about to be hit by lightning. If a tornado ever looks like it's not moving, run or take cover, because it is actually moving towards you. If a service dog approaches you without its owner, follow them and do it quickly because you can save someone else's life. The more colorful the animal is, the more likely it's poisonous and you should never touch it.
Things that will happen in the next 24 hours on Earth, Part 1. 231 million people will make love tonight. 365,000 babies will be born. 22 million people will celebrate their birthday. There will be 8.6 million lightning strikes. Chickens will lay 190 million eggs. Toilets around the world will be flushed 22 billion times. 100,000 trees will be cut down for paper bags and toilet paper alone. 200 different plants or animal species will become extinct. Your heart will beat over 100,000 times. 15 million cigarettes will be sold around the world, and 20,000 people will die of smoking. Follow for more facts.
Animal facts that'll make you see the world a little differently. The only reason tigers are orange is because the animals on their grocery list are Helen Keller to the color. So if you're something like a deer, this is what the biggest cat in the world and a striped Uber to the afterlife looks like. Polar bears have black skin. The only reason they look white is because their fur is translucent and hollow. And with hollow hair, light bounces off of them and reflects enough to look like an aggressive piece of snowdrift. Flamingos aren't naturally pink. The color comes from the carotenoid pigments in the shrimp and algae they eat. If they didn't eat it, they'd look like an IKEA kitchen, just 50 shades of bland. And if you move like Bugs Bunny and start ODing on carrots, the same thing thing can happen to you, but instead of pink, you turn a shade of orange. If you think an orca's eyes are here, you've fallen for their trap card. It's actually right there. The giant white patches are false eyes to trick any prey that tries to fight back. That's just devious. This is a black bear. Let me explain. This is a black bear with a mutation called leucism that basically turns it into a shiny Pokemon. Matter of fact, all three of these are black bears, and I can't even be mad. I'm black and I'm proud, but I'm black and I'm brown, at least according to Crayola. Bulls hating the color red is a myth. Mostly because bulls can't even see the color red, but chickens do, and because their instinct is to attack the color red, you're more likely to get pressed by a pack of poultry if you cosplay as the Kool-Aid Man. The more you know.
I'm telling you, the devil is in the music. Listen to this song right here. Do you hear it? Do you remember listening to this song and hearing it? Bet you didn't know what it said. Watch this.
Okay.
When are you going to understand that the devil is in the music? He promotes his dysfunction to these people who aren't following God. If you're not following God, you can be easily influenced by the devil to do what he wants to do through you. So be with the Lord, and if you stand for Jesus, type in the comments, I stand for Jesus, and share this with a friend.
This is what humans will look like in 1,000 then 1,000,000 years. And I promise you the ending will shock the shit out of you. We will most likely be part human, part machine. Having small nanobots inside of us so that we are not limited by the bodies that we're born in. And most likely even robotic features to increase your eyesight, hearing, physical strength and agility. So a cross between a Terminator and a fucking Jedi. We will next have perfect genes. Scientists are already working on a gene editing technique called CRISPR. It sounds like a crisp company. Literally allowing us to build healthier humans from birth to make sure there are no diseases or birth defects. Also, there's a chance that we'll leave death behind completely. Aye. Normal! By literally scanning your brain into a computer. We are all Siri. We'd basically all be superheroes. Speaking of which, what superpower would you want? Let me know in the comments. But here's the kicker. 1,000,000 years, what in the fuck are we gonna look like? Well, this is us in 100,000 years. Loki, kinda like it. And then 1,000,000 years. What the fuck are you doing? Cheers with a friend to let them know what they're gonna look like one day. Everyone with me? Elon!
Ariana Grande claims that she was attacked by a demon. Watch this.
Wow, Ariana Grande has got a real problem with demons, she told Complex magazine. Apparently, she went to a haunted cemetery called Stull Cemetery near Kansas City.
And it's actually supposedly one of the gateways to hell, supposed gateways to hell. And this is what she said happens. I felt this sick, overwhelming feeling of negativity over the whole car, and we smelled sulfur, which is the sign of a demon.
Who knew?
She said, this is scary, let's leave. I rolled down the window before we left and said, we apologize. We didn't mean to disrupt your peace. Then I took a picture, and there are 3 super distinct faces in the picture. They're faces of textbook demons.
That is
Hollywood is full of demons, but that doesn't have to be you. Subscribe for more, and check the video I pinned in the comments about how to get rid of demons.
...2024 just got even crazier, part 16. Firstly, a Canadian man who was about to go on an upcoming camping trip used Google Maps to see the area that he was going to be camping. Well, while on Google Maps, the man discovered this, and experts believe that the man just discovered a very possible ancient meteor impact while on Google Maps. The fact that he found this using Google Maps is wild. Next, also in Canada, a woman who was at a barbecue started playing with these water guns with a child. Well, while playing with the water guns, she accidentally sprayed the neighbor who was cutting grass next door. Well, the man got angry and called the police, and somehow the woman was charged with assault with a weapon. Finally, a 57-year-old man was about to have burgers when the burgers were frozen together. So he got a kitchen knife to separate the burgers, but while he tried to separate them, he accidentally stabbed himself and the man unfortunately passed away. RIP, this is horrible.
Yo, what's up? These are the scariest facts about everyday life, part 1. A regular office desk contains 400 times more bacteria than a toilet does. That's disgusting. In only 1 pound of peanut butter, there can be over 150 bug fragments and over 5 rodent hairs. That means rat hairs and insects. Watching TV for more than 2 hours a day can shorten your life expectancy by 1.5 years. But if you watch it for more than 5 or 6 hours a day, you could shorten your life expectancy by 5 years. That's insane. This one scared me a little bit because I do wear a lot of rings, but under those rings can contain as many as 730 million germs. That's the size of Europe. And the fact that I wear my rings every day kind of concerns me because it could get me sick. The last one's going to be 15% of the air you breathe in just an average metro station is human skin. So you're breathing in everybody's skin around you, which is kind of terrifying.
Which of these facts is the hardest to believe? It takes sunlight 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel from the sun to the earth. The reason why doctors flick the syringe before giving you a shot is to remove air bubbles. This is because air bubbles can block your blood, so make sure the doctor flicks the syringe. If you get anxious every time you hear a knock on the door or hear your phone ring, it is because you do not have enough serotonin in your body. A lot of people suffer from phantom vibration syndrome, which is when you feel your phone vibrating when it actually isn't. Now, if you were offered a new phone but it meant having to kiss the second person that comes up when you click share and then WhatsApp, would you take it? Research shows that most people in the world choose blue as their favorite color. Comment your favorite color. You can go to prison for cheating on an exam in Bangladesh. Both more.
Here's what would happen if the world lost oxygen for 5 seconds. Any mode of transport that isn't electric will fail, planes will fall out of the sky, and millions of cars will be stopped in their tracks. Our ears would explode due to the sudden change in air pressure, as oxygen makes up 21% of the atmosphere. In just 5 seconds, the Earth would look completely different. You can say goodbye to anything made of concrete, as these structures rely on oxygen as a special binding agent. If you're at the beach, then expect a severe sunburn, as there would be nothing protecting us from the sun's UV rays. The Earth's crust would crumble as it is made up of 45% oxygen, sending everyone on the planet into a freefall. Comment if you think you could survive.
Morbid Facts, Part 415. Found in a jungle cave in 1867, a feral boy named Dina Sanichar preferred eating raw meat, had trouble standing on 2 legs, growled like a wolf, chewed on bones to sharpen his teeth, and never learned how to speak. He eventually became the inspiration for Mowgli in the Jungle Book. In 2016, 11-year-old Nebraska girl Lulu Gilreath was going on her first carnival ride when it quickly turned into anyone's worst nightmare. Her hair got caught in the machinery of a spinning ride at a carnival, and her scalp was almost completely torn off. The horrible accident damaged both of her eyes and nearly killed her. After World War II, Japanese General Hitoshi Imamura was sentenced to 10 years in prison after failing to control his unit, which committed horrible atrocities toward Allied soldiers. Believing that his own sentence was too light compared to the men under his command, Imamura built a replica prison in his garden where he stayed for decades until his death in 1968.
Lil Uzi Vert's scary performance at Rolling Loud.
You were today years old when you found these out. If you scratch the inside of your ear with your finger, it sounds like Pac-Man. Okay, if you think about it, at any point in history, you had an ancestor living no matter what. Your car keys have traveled further than your car. I was today years old when I realized there isn't a skeleton inside of you. You are the brain, so you're inside the skeleton. It's actually proven that a midday nap can reduce your chance of a heart attack by 37%. You've never actually watched a full movie because you blink. And did you know dogs can smell cancer? Dogs are able to pick up on a specific scent that cancer produces in a person, which is undetectable to humans.
Darkest performances.
everyone, but no one noticed it.
We need to talk about the infamous Russian pedophile and snuff film ring. So just so I'm factually correct, here's the article I'm talking about here. So in the year 2000, a massive scandal rocked Russia. In that year, Russian authorities uncovered a pedophile ring that ran all the way from Russia to the United States. There were over 5,000 members that were busted in different countries, but the exact details of these crimes are really hard to stomach, so viewer discretion is advised. Obviously, the police and authorities had to watch some of this content that was uncovered, and what they saw was absolutely disturbing. They saw hundreds of different children being abused by groups of men, and on top of that, after the abuse was over, these children were then brutally tortured and killed on camera. Now, something extremely disturbing is that these videos made over $470 million worth of revenue. Just stop and think about that for 1 second. Just stop and think about how much money that is that people were paying to watch these videos. There were people in the US purchasing these tapes, there were people in the Middle East, people in Russia, people in Italy. And in fact, when they were covering this news story, 2 European TV stations accidentally broadcast images and video from the tapes. Graphic, uncensored material. Obviously, the whole team that was involved in that was fired. But the police officers and authorities who actually worked on this case have gone on the record and said every single night since then they still hear children screaming in their dreams. So these rings operated throughout many different countries, including Italy, Russia, all throughout the Middle East. And what the authorities think they were doing was snatching children out of orphanages and even at times targeting kids when they walked away from their parents at the circus. Now, thankfully, hundreds of people were arrested after this was uncovered and justice was dealt. And thankfully, Russia's prison system is pretty brutal, so I'm sure that the men who were put in there for these crimes got the justice that they deserved. But this is absolutely frightening because this stuff is still happening today in 2024. It's not just happening in Europe, it's happening in America. There's so much more we could get into here. But yeah, we need to continue to talk about this stuff to raise awareness that this is happening.
I thought that the French protests were unhinged before, but this might be the single most hilarious way of protesting I've ever seen. As we all know, Paris is hosting the Summer Olympics, but a lot of French people aren't very happy about that. Because, and I only found out about this today, the Olympics is kind of a scam when it comes to a country actually making money. Don't get me wrong, it's great for global street cred, but for example, when China hosted it, they made a net loss of 36.4 billion, and London made a net loss of 13 billion, and that's all taxpayer money. So when the public heard that France has already spent over 5 billion, and then that Macron wanted to spend another billion just to clean up the Seine River so it looks good for the Olympics, they lost it, and the I shit in the Seine River protest began. On the 23rd of June, the French President Macron and the Paris mayor plan to take a ceremonial swim in the river to show off just how clean it is. So the protesters are now planning a defecation flash mob because, and I quote, after putting us in shit, it's up to them to bathe in our shit. Oh, and if you don't live in Paris, no bloody problem, because someone created this website. You type in how many kilometers you are away from Paris, and using a water flow algorithm, it will tell you precisely the day and the exact time you need to shit into the river to reach Paris at the time Macron will be swimming in it. Oh, I told you, and that is why I say,
if you work the night shift, this is something you should never do. A nurse and his co-workers are working the night shift when they decide to explore a closed-out area of the ER that's believed to be haunted by the spirit of a boy who passed away in one of the rooms. As they make their way there, they find this creepy-looking doll by the work desk, but continue exploring. Now, looking for a scare, they arrive at the room that's haunted by the spirit of the boy. Then this happens.
Go in. Go in. Go in. Figure out where the lights are. I don't like that. I don't like that. Do it. They look like evil eyes. You guys gonna come with me? Yeah, of course we're gonna go in with you.
Thanks. Ooh, this feels weird. Is that you? Yeah. This room feels weird. I don't like this. Ooh. Oh! 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 The curtain moved!
No, it did.
Yeah, it did. It moved. It moved. It moved. Yes, it did. It did. How did you not see that? Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
Another song written by the devil? Watch this. Now, if you believe the devil definitely wrote that song, better follow or subscribe.
People who went missing and were found alive years later. In 2011, two fishermen from Kiribati were lost at sea for 33 days before they landed on the Marshall Islands, and when they arrived, locals took them to meet the only person on the island who spoke their language. Well, the fishermen then discovered that the only person who spoke the language was one of the fisherman's uncles who went missing 50 years earlier, who also got lost at sea. He was thought to be dead, but it turned out the uncle was perfectly fine and had a whole new life. Next, in 1997, a family in China had their young son abducted outside their home, and when an official search couldn't find their son, the father started his own search. So for the next 2 decades, he would travel all over China on motorbikes with flags of his son, and would hand out flyers everywhere. And 24 years after he spent all of his life savings, his son was finally found. Props to that father.
Did the Olympics just create a parody of Jesus' Last Supper with drag queens? Well, that is the question being asked after last night's Olympic ceremony took place. And in a couple of the acts, some were claiming that religious imagery was used, like the golden calf, the fourth horseman, and one scene in particular is being compared to Leonardo da Vinci's mural of Jesus and his 12 disciples. In the scene, broadcast cameras pan out on a number of drag queens standing behind a raised stage, with one in the middle wearing a piece on her head that is likened to religious drawings of a halo with lines of light emanating out of it. Some outraged with this scene said this is extremely disrespectful to Christians, and that the Olympics declared loudly that the 2.4 billion Christians on Earth are not welcome. But others say that those offended are just reading too much into it. And the organizers stated that the performance was to make us aware through a humoristic and poetic song the absurdity of violence between human beings. So the question is, what do you think? Was this scene intentional or merely a coincidence?
This Christian movement believed that the Christian God was evil. I am of course speaking about Gnosticism. Now, Gnosticism refers to a range of different ideas that emerged around the first few centuries of Christianity. Much of what we knew about Gnosticism was actually lost. Our knowledge of it mostly came from those that criticized it. Well, at least until 1945, as that is when Gnostic texts were discovered in Egypt. Now, the creation story in these texts is what's interesting. Now, I'm basically going to be presenting a very brief summary of a summary by the scholar known as David Brackey. So Gnostics believed that reality was originally just a single supreme God, so complex that our human minds wouldn't be able to comprehend it. But over time, this God started to produce other deities known as eons. It produced quite a few, and they were basically in pairs, having a male and female counterpart. Now, they all existed within this great spiritual realm. But here's where things got a little messy. One of these eons was referred to as Wisdom or Sophia, and she decided to reproduce without a male counterpart. So she reproduced asexually. And while it worked, her offspring was this deformed, twisted creature known as the demiurge. It was deformed, twisted, and evil, right? So what did the other eons do? They cast it out. It's put in isolation away from the spiritual realm. In its isolation, it decided to create its own realm, right? So it started to create its own eons and later our reality. But it convinced its creations that it was the supreme God. There was nothing beyond him, forcing its creations to worship it. But because it's so imperfect, its creations are imperfect, which is why our world is full of suffering and pain, according to the Gnostics. And according to the Gnostics, the demiurge is the God of the Old Testament. So the goal of the Gnostics, at least those that believed in this creation myth, was to realize the reality of our existence. Of course, Christians didn't really like this whole conspiracy theory about them, so That's why Gnostic texts are so rare. They were burnt, destroyed throughout history. Now, this is a very brief summary. There's a lot more to it, but perhaps I'll make more videos about it soon.